Even though I was not a first-time mom, I felt like a first-time mom.
It totally blew my mind over time. So much information that I had no idea about. You know, she was straightforward when, teaching me this stuff and answered any of my questions. Just a really positive experience.
What I think that parents could benefit with the program is just having someone here for you, especially for first-time parents. It can be very isolating and it can be very lonely, and having the home visitor changes that and it feels very good.
For me, having a home visitor is like having a second mom there.
A lot has changed. I'm definitely more knowledgeable taking care of her. And I know that anytime I need advice or help from somebody, I can just call her.
It's just that little positive nudge to, hey, I'm noticing something, let's find a way how to change it. And she's like, you know what, Amanda, let's pick you up, dust you off, and let's go over to, see about either getting your driver's license or seeing about, going to college, see if we can start something for you.
It's totally worth it. Like, even if you're on the fence at first, you don't feel like having a stranger coming in your house and teaching you about your little one, do it anyway. You get the help that you need. You get professional advice on things you may not know about your child. The fact that the program has no fees or anything, it's all totally free, is fantastic.
Yo creo que si conozco a alguien que está próxima a ser mamá, lo primero que haría sería recomendarle el programa, porque te entrega mucho apoyo, mucha información y más que nada como apoyo emocional, una guía, te da una visión diferente de cómo es ser papá aquí, quizás en este país.
Y así pues es un bonito programa, porque pues es buena persona la señora y los ha atendido muy bien.
Pensé que nada más iba a ser un programa de orientación quizás para los nuevos padres, pero creo que nos llevamos una linda sorpresa porque Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad, y en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber qué actividades hacer con Máximo de acuerdo a su edad, cómo estimularlo, cómo cuidarlo de los peligros de la casa, como cosas que uno como papá nuevo no conoce, claro.
Pues a mí me gustaría que lo siguiéramos visitando aquí en la biblioteca de Covelo. Está tranquilo y muy bonito aquí.
Cuando no nos podemos reunir, Zoom o una llamada telefónica o por texto.
Donde nos visite, porque ha sido nuestra casa. A veces nosotros vamos a Willits y puede ser en el parque. Gaby llega, como hacemos un resumen de cómo ha ido nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro. Vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo. A veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras y jugamos.
You ready? All right. I'm going to call the February 26, 2025 General Government Meeting to order and invite the clerk to conduct roll call.
Supervisor Mulhern.
Here.
Supervisor Norvell.
Here.
Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. We will begin with item 2A, the Drought Task Force discussion and possible action, including acceptance of a presentation from EKI Environment and Water on the Mendocino County Drought Resilience Plan Development and Drought Task Force Participation Project. Good morning, Amber Fassett from DOT.
Good morning. Amber Fassett, Department of Transportation and Water Agency. So as you know, since June of 2024, we've been working on development of the Drought Resilience Plan in response to SB 552. And we're here today to have an update. We have our consultants that are working on the project with us, along with the Cooperative Extension, UC Cooperative Extension, and we have Amir here from EKI to give us an update on the work that's been done since the last Drought Task Force meeting. And additionally, he's going to give a summary, kind of a brief summary of the information that was presented at the last meeting for the new supervisors on the committee and for members of the public. And with that, I will hand it over to Amir. It looks like he's on.
Thank you, Amber. And hi, everyone. As Amber mentioned, this is Amir Mani from EKI Environment and Water. Happy to be here and present our work, a continuation of the presentation we brought to the same committee in September 2024. And I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. Okay. I can see it's on now. We will provide basically a summary of previous meeting to have a refresher pretty quickly in order to keep this presentation within the time that we have and also provide enough time for Q&A at the end. Then go through the steps that we basically made progress on since September, and then lay ahead what's next for this plan before going to the question and answers. This is a relatively long presentation. I try to be brief when I go through the slides, but please stop me and ask questions as we go through, because if I want to go through the entire presentation, it might lose the point. And also we want this to be more of a discussion than just a single presentation of progress. So our agenda for the presentation, again, the meeting recap, the two major steps that we did for the drought resilience plan or response actions, and the drought stage triggers, and then the implementation pathways. And then at the end, we're going to go to the next step. A background on the Senate Bill 552, which is the precursor to all the work that we are doing on this plan, and also the Drought Task Force, which is held under this committee. SB 552 was in response to the previous drought that hit the state of California very hard, specifically Mendocino County. And it has two major components for the counties. So there are different parts depending on the water supplier, but there is a portion of this SB 552 that directs counties for compliance with two major requirements. The first is to establish a standing county drought task force which is basically this venue for the County of Mendocino. This task force, the major responsibilities of it is to facilitate drought and water shortage preparedness for state small water systems and domestic wells. And that's a significant point for everything that we're doing under SB 552. The audience of this bill for the county's responsibility is the state small water system and domestic wells. While drought affects everyone, county responsibilities is focused basically on these two beneficial users. And second is to invite representatives from state and local agencies to participate in the task force for this preparedness, which is highlighted because of the conditions in Mendocino County and the water supply system in the county. The second part of the SB 552 requires the counties to develop a drought resilience plan, which is the project that we're speaking of today. And as an abbreviation, we call this plan DRP, going for the drought resilience plan. And this plan basically includes a risk assessments of the vulnerabilities that drought and water shortage would impose on domestic well users and state small water systems, and also proposes some interim short-term and long-term actions at stages for the county and everyone else to do to be more prepared for future droughts in comparison to the 2021 and 2013-14 drought. So focusing on the DRP, again, as I mentioned, the drought task force, and we went through it in the September meeting. County of Mendocino and the Mendocino County Water Agency complied with the requirement of SB 552 for drought task force since, I think, January 2021. The task force has been moved between a couple of committees and now basically is done under this committee. The task force has a charter, and we have been doing this work under this venue for public outreach and engagement. Now, focusing on the second part, which is the plan development, there is a guidebook published by the Department of Water Resources that lays the foundation of how the drought resilience plan needs to be developed and what are the main topics to be addressed in that plan. So there are four major components based on the guidebook, as you see in this figure. The first one is data collection. And in that part, because we are mostly speaking countywide, and there is the need for consistency and basically using the similar methodologies to assess the vulnerability. Most of the data collection part goes towards the state's effort in providing the tools that are needed for developing this plan. So the Department of Water Resources and the State Water Board provided resources for the counties to use to do this data collection and vulnerability assessment, the first two steps that we covered during the September meeting, and I'm going to provide a summary of it in the next slides. Then based on these, basically the third stage would be management actions that are divided into short-term and long-term actions. And then after that is the implementation, basically, which is how these short-term and long-term actions would be implemented during different stages of drought in the county. Our current progress, as you can see, the check marks is basically we are done with all four stages. We are finalizing the DRP text for review for the Mendocino County Water Agency, and we will provide a summary of that plan and the commenting process in the next meeting in March. As I mentioned, so the plan timeline, the risk assessment, the first component, along with the data collection, was done in August 2024. We presented the results in a CDTF meeting, the Drought Task Force meeting, under the GGC committee in September. We also held a public workshop that was led by the UC Cooperative Extension and the Mendocino County in September, early September, to discuss the same topics with the public. We developed the short-term and long-term strategies and the implementation roadmap that we are presenting today. During this GGC meeting, we also held a public workshop on February 21st, just a few days ago, again led by the UC Cooperative Extension and the Mendocino County Water Agency to discuss the same topics. We will have a more summary of that meeting in our March presentation to the committee. And then in March, we will move after the GGC meeting, we will move to public review and commenting. We will address the comments, and hopefully we will have the final plan in May for adoption by the Board of Supervisors. So the first part, just highlighting what we did and what we presented in September. We had a more detailed presentation, and the details of this analysis, the sources of data, and all the results and metrics would be in the plan for review for anyone that's interested. This is just a summary of the results. And one thing to note is that the risk assessment and the vulnerability assessment under this plan is not supposed to project a specific condition for domestic wells or state small water system. This is mainly to inform the plan development, show the risk areas, show the risk categories that we need to be prepared for. Again, the objective of this plan is to increase preparedness. It's not about if anyone is at risk currently or indication of any major risk in the future. It's just to inform where the focus needs to be, what we need to focus on, and how we can prepare for it to respond better. So as it's expected in the Mendocino County, because of different categories of vulnerability, physical and social, and even in the physical, multiple categories of vulnerability that can cause risk during a drought, including water quality, ground boil level declines, not having enough storage because of rock fractures and aquifers, curtailment, water quality. All those categories are considered in defining the vulnerability here. But in terms of the state small water systems, basically 93% of state small water system within the county have a high degree of vulnerability, physical vulnerability, and social vulnerability to drought. So it basically directs us to focus on the entire county for our efforts, consider the entire landscape, and consider all the factors, because there are state small water systems that do have water quality problems. There are state small water systems that do have resiliency problems and reliability problems in terms of their source of water supply. And there are state small water systems that don't have access to a good aquifer system for groundwater. So multiple factors, a very wide spatial distribution, just direct us to consider the county as a whole in terms of being vulnerable to drought. Same thing shows us when we focus on domestic wells. Again, the number of domestic wells obviously are higher in some areas of the county. In some areas, there are not a lot of domestic wells. But as we go through this risk assessment, the conclusion would be that while there are specific areas that you want to look into in a specific factor, and those are outlined in the plan, we want to have a holistic view of the county in terms of preparedness for the drought. And we need to address these risks within the entire county, within all 5 supervisorial districts, and within all metrics that matter within the county. Before I go through the response action, I just wanted to pause for a bit to see if there are any questions about what we presented up to now.
Thank you. We don't have any questions at this time.
Oh, thank you. So that was just a review of what we did before. I tried to be a bit quicker going on, but the third stage, which is what we did since September, is the management actions. Basically, being informed by the risks, the requirements of the SB 552, the conditions within the county. Now we need to put in and lay out a foundation of actions that the county, in coordination with the Drought Task Force members and other participants in terms of water supply in the county and the public, would do in different stages of drought to be prepared for a severe drought, basically. So the actions are divided into short-term actions and long-term actions because of the nature of the type of actions that we can take, their funding requirements, and their implementation requirements. So just a background on where we stand. So the DRP, and this is how it's reflected within the guidebook for the Department of Water Resources and also within the SB 552 itself. Counties are in different conditions within the state of California in terms of their water supply system, their water rights authority, and their capabilities in terms of providing water and emergency water to users. Different counties have different conditions and their plans would be different from each other. In Mendocino County, the county itself does not have much of a water supply capability. And therefore, it needs to basically coordinate and collaborate with water agencies, with public water systems, with other water suppliers to be able to respond to droughts. So the objective that we have under this plan is to facilitate, the county has under this plan, to facilitate increased and structured drought preparedness for domestic wells and state small water system under county's jurisdiction. Again, this plan is focused on these two user groups, and the county's role is primarily to facilitate preparedness through coordination and education with other entities that actually have the capacity for water supply. The responsibilities of the county, again, the county is not a water supplier, and it doesn't have a recurring annual budget to undertake water supply reliability resiliency projects. There has been specific cases that these things have been done by the county, but it's not a recurring budget under the county. The second thing to note is that the county needs to rely on coordination and collaboration because of the same point with local entities to be able to achieve meaningful improvement in water resiliency. And that's what we planned in this plan, and that's the Drought Task Force mission since 2021 to actually build this coordination with other entities to get to meaningful actions. So the actions that we define, short-term and long-term under the plan, basically fall under 5 major categories. So the first category is to inform, educate, outreach, and engage the public, specifically the domestic well users and state small water systems, to provide the information that they need, to point them to the right resources, and to help them prepare before drought happens. The second part is to track and monitor conditions, and it goes hand in hand with informing, so the county can project what needs to be implemented, what type of coordination needs to be done, and to inform the public of what's to come. And that's also built in the plan as I go through. The third is facilitate as a venue for coordination, for information, communication, and collaboration, and it's primarily the task force, this venue that we have right here, and then other outreach efforts that will be done by the county, different departments, by the UC Cooperative Extension, and other public entities. The fourth category is to help and facilitate pursuing funding sources, providing information on available funding sources on the plan, on its portal, and I'm going to go through that as one action later on in more details. And the last part is when we get to actually emergency situations like severe droughts, that emergency actions needs to be done, the county would do that similar to previous droughts through emergency protocols and declarations that they have. It kind of falls outside of this plan in those stages, and it's a collaboration between, different county departments and public entities to respond to those emergencies. So the framework that we have, again, going by the same, principles of short-term and long-term and different stages of drought, and we will define these stages in the later slide. When we are in normal years, basically called the stage 1 drought, water shortage monitoring. There's no water shortage right now. We're just monitoring for it. Short-term actions and long-term actions both can be done. And these are the types of actions that the county would pursue at this stage that are recurring. They are done basically during all sorts of years. They're basic actions that's always being done in the county. And they help boost both short-term and long-term actions for the later stages of drought, the stage 2 and stage 3. In stage 2, and this happens in stage 3 as well, so none of these actions actually change, you just get added on when you go to a more severe stage. So the stage 1 actions would continue, but now the county prepares by doing some specific actions related to stage 2 to be prepared if actually the drought severes into a stage 3. So basically it's more preparedness for a more severe drought to come. And then in stage 3, basically it is a severe drought. In some areas of the county might cause emergency actions. And in that case, county responsibility becomes responding to those emergencies in coordination with other plans that the county has. So we use the same coloring scheme here to show the stages. So green is stage 1, not much of a drought, normal year. Stage 2 is yellow. We need to prepare. We are seeing signs of drought, but it's not severe. It's not emergency yet. And then red is basically we are in severe drought and we need to respond to some emergencies. In those stages, as you can see, stage 1, again, tracking and monitoring. The meat of county responsibilities under the plan is outreach and education. Recurring drought task force meetings. Again, under the charter of the task force, we have different frequencies based on different stages. So during a normal year, it's at the minimum twice a year. Then when the stage goes to stage 2, it becomes quarterly, and then probably you need to meet monthly or more frequent when it's emergency. Then it becomes facilitation for the county. So mutual aid agreements between the state small water systems and other entities. County can play a role of facilitator in those agreements. The county's role would be limited, again, because it's not a water supplier. But if there is a need for a venue, if there is a need for coordination, if there is a need for advocacy, that's where the county can play a role in terms of those mutual aid agreements. The same kind of role in terms of partnerships with NGOs and state agencies. Again, county can play a role for advocacy and facilitate that collaboration between a state small water system, domestic well groups, with NGOs and state agencies, and coordination with GSA, which the county is already a member of the board and the TAG group in the GSA. GSA plays a role in terms of managing the domestic wells within its border. So the coordination is just natural to this plan. The second stage is basically encouraging people for voluntary water cutbacks, projecting a more severe drought to come, having public prepare voluntarily to conserve water, and then temporary ordinances that would help respond to a more severe drought. And that has happened before in previous droughts. And the third stage, the emergency, is basically county would play a role in terms of identifying what type of funding is available to undertake emergency actions and other strategies. In some areas, the county might help provide emergency and interim drinking water if that's needed. And then basically the direction comes from the Board of Supervisors in terms of emergency declarations and any other ordinances that needs to be done during that emergency period. And then county would accomplish that in coordination with basically MCWA in coordination with other departments. I apologize for the number of abbreviations in this slide. Just quickly, as part of the implementation of the plan. So again, the same type of actions that you saw in the boxes and in the slide previous to this, it just puts the lead agencies on them. So as you can see in a stage 1, it's mostly focused on facilitation and outreach and the Drought task force. So most of the work is being led by the Mendocino County Water Agency, which is the lead agency on the SB 552 compliance, the GSA, and the Drought task force core members, which is the major water suppliers in the county. When we go to a stage 2, basically the preparedness again is being led by NCWA, but mostly through the Drought task force and by the Drought task force members. And then some of the actions that needs to be done basically needs to be directed by the Board of Supervisors and the Executive Office. So some of that direction comes in the stage 2. And the stage 3 is more towards emergency response, and the engagement, the education still goes through the County Water Agency and the task force, but the Executive Office, Board of Supervisors, and the Office of Emergency Services would lead a lot of actions here in coordination with the County Water Agency, just to identify the need and have the resources to actually provide those actions. In terms of the long-term mitigation, because of the situation that the county is in, not having much of a water supplying role within the county, a long-term mitigation mostly mirrors the short-term mitigation in stage 1 actions, the type of things that needs to be done on a recurring basis every year. And I'm going to repeat that, but basically those are the ones that we also see as a long-term action and having a long-term impact. But also, there are things that are required under the guidebook for the county to provide information on. And in addition to these that we identified, one of them is the consolidation. Again, the situation that the county has, there is no water supplying infrastructure owned by the county. So actual consolidation, physical consolidation cannot happen with county being one part of that consolidation. It needs to go through other entities with water supply infrastructure. But county plays, again, a facilitation and advocacy role for those and can support those type of efforts, as has been done for the Ukiah Valley area with their consolidation and with the Water Authority. And then there are different types of consolidation, so managerial, physical, and regionalization, which different parts of the county might be feasible for different types of consolidation. Our plan for the drought resilience plan is to provide preliminary information on consolidation, but again, this type of action would be conducted outside the DRP and by relevant agencies through funding that probably comes from the state board. This is the type of preliminary analysis that we will put in the plan, and there would be a table that basically shows the feasible connections that can be made. Consolidation is mostly provided for state small water systems, not really towards domestic wells. But in terms of having proximity to water suppliers that the state smalls can connect to, most systems have at least that preliminary proximity to these water suppliers to consolidate. But there are other factors to consider in terms of actual mileage of pipeline that needs to be done, the willingness of both parties for consolidation, and actual expense of that consolidation in terms of how many users we're helping and how much expense that consolidation has. So they're all information that needs to be considered to initiate a consolidation process, which is basically outside the realm of this plan. I know I'm kind of over time, but the stages of drought, and that's something that the Mendocino County Water Agency would assess and inform as part of the stage 1 actions that they have for tracking and monitoring the drought stages. So right now, how we define it is based on 3 factors that I'm going to go through. But this plan is a living document. So as needed, based on future droughts, these stages can be modified by the county and the drought task force to represent the conditions within the county better. Right now, what we use is the previous drought, basically the 2021-2022 drought, how it was responded to and how the emergency declarations were provided based on the conditions. So we use those information to set up these 3 stages that I went through for the actions. So we use the USDA drought monitor for a county-wide metric in terms of drought. There was a drought monitor declaration on March 5th, 2021 that we went through. County, we divided the county into 2 parts, basically the inland and the coastal region, because of the difference in terms of their water structure, aquifer structure, and the type of risks that they're exposed to. And I'm going to go through that. And then we use for the coastal region, the precipitation for the watershed, and we use for the inland region, the storage in Lake Mendocino, which is relied upon for stages of drought. So as I mentioned, on the coastal region, we have the Big Navarro Garcia watershed. That's basically that envelopes the coastal region as we view it. And then the green part that's not within that watershed is called the inland region, which we use the Lake Mendocino for drought stages. How we put these drought metrics in is we basically followed what was used in the previous drought to declare an emergency declaration. So for US Drought Monitor, what they used was the stages of D1, D2 for 8 weeks. And those are basically the severity of drought in the drought, the US Drought Monitor website. For the Big Navarro Garcia watershed precipitation, again, we use what was the precipitation level for a 2-year rainfall. And we use that as a stage 3. And then we looked at normal years and we put that as stage 1, and whatever fell between the 2 would be a stage 2. And for Lake Mendocino, we did the same type of analysis as the precipitation for the watershed, but with levels of storage in Lake Mendocino. Again, as Lake Mendocino goes through different operations now because of FERO, those information can be updated in the future updates to this plan. But right now we went by the data from 2021 to 2023. So this is the table kind of summarizing those drought metrics. This would be tracked by the Mendocino County Water Agency how it's set up, it doesn't put a lot of resources on the county. Basically, the information would be available, and the county can provide this information during task force meetings. So again, we have regional triggers and we have a countywide trigger. The countywide trigger based on US Drought Monitor for different stages. So if you're D0 or none, there is no drought, you're at stage 1. If you are D1 or D2 for 8 weeks, then stage 2. And then if we are more severe than that, we are at stage 3. So we might actually need to do some emergency actions. On the inland region, based on dry well reports, which is something that the Department of Water Resources publishes in terms of the number of wells that go dry. So we put quarterly and we looked at the number of wells that went dry during the 3-month periods during the drought in 2021 and 2022. So we put those as the levels to inform the drought stage. And then the hydrology based on Lake Mendocino storage for inland and precipitation for the coastal region. In terms of implementation, as I mentioned, most of the implementation during a stage 1 and stage 2 is towards providing the hub for information, education, outreach, facilitation, pointing users to the right resources, providing the resources, information for them to use. And then from stage 2 to stage 3, there are actions that need to be taken by the Board of Supervisors and the Executive Office, and then emergency actions that needs to be done. That would be done as it's been done for the past 2 droughts on case-specific basis and based on the severity of the drought. Those actions in all 3 stages will be coordinated with existing plans within the county. And as you know, we have the hazard mitigation plan, the Mendocino, the GSA has the groundwater sustainability plan for the domestic well users. They have services to provide. There's the county general plan, there are area plans. So all of these would be coordinated in terms of responding to the drought. And the DRP is not supposed to impose any restrictions or provide any conflict in terms of actions. But in stage 2 and stage 3, those would drive the decisions under DRP and under drought task force to respond to the drought. I covered the adaptive management, so that the plan would be updated and droughts differ from each other. Not all droughts are the same. The conditions that are imposed on the county would differ, therefore the actions that the county needs to take would differ. We are in the process with the county to provide a funding section on the drought portal that basically provides available solicitations for grant funding and provide more instructions to domestic wells and state smalls in terms of resources that they can use, working with NGOs or companies like RCAC that provide free testing or provide low interest rate loans for these type of user groups to prepare for the drought. So that's the part that we will basically put in the plan, and it's in the works to update the county drought portal for more information on the funding. In the emergency stage 3, depending on the direction from the Board of Supervisors, county might elect to pursue funding and provide some sort of assistance as needed. But the plan right now focused on providing the resources to the user bases, the state smalls and domestic wells, to pursue funding. Basically get technical assistance from right resources and find the funding that works for their projects. And we already covered this, but basically the whole plan and the drought task force, as you know, is handled and is led by the Mendocino County Water Agency. But depending on the stage, the lead agencies for different actions would differ in the implementation. So stage 1 is mostly the Mendocino County Water Agency, the task force, and the GSA. Stage 2, practically the same group with the addition of Executive Office and Board of Supervisors for taking specific actions as needed. And stage 3 would mostly come from the Board of Supervisors based on the emergency declaration, and then different departments within the county would take up those actions as identified by the Board of Supervisors and implement them. So that's how the implementation is set up. Again, the drought resiliency plan really depends on when and how the drought happens. So there is no hard deadline or hard timeline for implementation of actions that we have for the county. It's basically a a pathway of implementation of how things should be done as droughts happens in the future. So our next step right now, we are finalizing the draft plan. These were the components of the plan as I presented. In March 26, our next GGC meeting or Drought Task Force meeting, we will have the final plan available on the website. We will go through the summary of the plan again very quickly. We provide an overview of the plan, of the draft plan in its writing. We'll go over the commenting process, the period of it, that would be 30 days, and how we will basically take up the comments and respond to them, and we provide a schedule for the adoption of it. And then our process is that after receiving the comments after 30 days and addressing them with the Mendocino County Water Agency, we will have the final plan available, and our schedule right now is to have that for adoption on the May 20th Board of Supervisors meeting. And with that, I think I covered the slide already. Thank you for your time. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Supervisor Norvell, do you have any questions? Okay, I have questions. Maybe they're for Amber. Just regarding the education and updating the county website, is that just something that you can do on the county DOT website? It says water agency, but it has nothing under it. Can we just add the link to the drought and water conservation page? I understand it's a separate page, but on our DOT page, it doesn't have anything.
Yeah, we can add a link. We do under the water agency page, we have a whole, we're calling it the drought portal, where we have all the resources available. But yes, we could add a link on the DOT page.
Yeah, on the DOT projects page, there's a spot for water that has no links. And I think it would be helpful if we could just link the other water agency page. I know that our website can be challenging for folks to use. So I appreciate the update and the report. I think there's been a lot of work that has been done, and I think generally drought seems to fall out of people's minds until we are in one. So I'm glad we're being proactive and coming up with a plan. With that, I'd like to open public comment for this item. And I'm not seeing anyone come forward. So if you are on Zoom and you'd like to comment, you can use the raise hand feature on the platform or press *9 on your phone. And I have Ishvi and Dominic.
Ishvi, I can see that you're unmuted. There may be an issue with the microphone that you're using. We're unable to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. You maybe just need to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. My name is Ishvi Om. I'm a building contractor and developer, lifetime resident of the coast. I'm also on the Mendocino Community Service District and have been working with GHD and our organization to try to get a community water system for our town so that we can be more drought resilient. Why I'm on the call today and what concerns me is that it feels like the regulatory agencies, including Mendocino County Public Planning and Building Departments and the State Department of Fish and Wildlife and water boards, are in fact some of the biggest obstacles to creating drought resiliency in our town and community. Currently, in the coastal zone, Mendocino is interpreting the code to require a full-blown CDP if somebody wants to install a water tank on their property or farm. This is a tremendous expense and a difficult process for something as simple as putting in a water tank. I brought this to the attention of the Board of Supervisors some months ago during public comment because during the drought, when the emergency was declared, we, water tanks were allowed to be put in without CDPs. And my point is that the time to prepare for a drought is not during a drought. The time to prepare for a drought is while we have plenty of water. That's the time to be able to locate reservoirs, to be able to see the way that the water flows, to be able to do the infrastructure work necessary to create drought resilience. So while I'm really happy that we are all kind of focused on this, I would really like to see if we could figure out a way to help both the private sector and the small water agencies navigate the agencies that are both state and local, because, you know, building a pond or a reservoir or putting in tanks, the physics of water management haven't changed for thousands of years, right? It's simple. We need to catch water during the winter months. We need to store it. We need to be able to use it. What has got more and more complex to the point where it's almost impossible to navigate is how to get through the regulatory and permitting process. And I don't hear that being mentioned. I see I'm almost out of time, so I'll really try to wrap this up. But I would really like to see that somehow Mendocino County can help the small agencies like MCCSD or small landowners, not so much with money to do the projects, but just with simply getting through the red tape so that we can proceed with the projects. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please hang on the line. I have a question for you. So we're not talking about a 5,000 gallon tank for personal use. Are you referring to a holding tank for water suppliers? I'm not sure what size you're targeting.
Any and all. At this point, Mendocino County Planning and Building Department is interpreting the setting of any size tank within the coastal zone to require a coastal development permit. That could be on somebody's half-acre parcel next to their well. It could be on a 20-acre farm where you want a series of 5,000 gallon tanks. Any size tank at this point they're saying is requiring a coastal development permit.
Okay, well, that might be the coastal commission that's requiring that, but we can look into that. Amber, do you have that in your notes so we can follow up with planning and building? We'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, and this is what I've been telling planning and building as well. The Coastal Act is something that is interpreted by Mendocino County. And when we declare an emergency or we, choose to interpret it in a certain way, we have that right as a county. So, the Coastal Act is not clear on all items. So I think it would be great if we could follow up. I would like to get that restriction cleared away. Anyway, thank you again.
Thank you. I think, we have 2 new members on this body, so we're also just going to be undergoing a learning curve for some of the things that have come up. So we're happy to look into that, and maybe we can have that as just a bullet point for the next meeting on the March 26th as the answer to that. Great. Dominic?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, great. Yeah, I'm Dominic Blum-Gutierrez. I'm with the California Department of Water Resources, and I'm the Mendocino County point of contact for drought issues. Anywho, I just wanted to quickly address one of Amir's comments on drought stage triggers, and that's dry well reports. And those are self-reports. And so if people are listening to this out in the public, if you have a well and it goes dry, one, we always recommend you reach out to your county office of emergency services, and they are usually good at letting us know. But in addition, you can tell us directly. So if you just Google DWR dry well reporting, you can report that your well has gone dry, and we also have some resources on that page. So we always appreciate when people let us know, because that's how we get that data. Yeah, that was basically it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's helpful information. Amir or Amber, or how about both? Amir first.
I just wanted to thanks Dominic for mentioning that. So we have that information and this website for the dry well reports, and also information on handling the wells on the drought portal. the same website that Amber mentioned. I just wanted to bring that up. So if public goes through that website, they can find a link to the reporting.
Okay, thank you, Amber.
I was just going to add that we always refer people who call to report dry wells to that website as well, and I know environmental health does as well. So we do our best to direct people to that resource.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it is important that people are reporting so that we have all the information. That's great. I do not see any additional hands raised online. Please come forward in the room. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Teresa Jolch. I live in Brook Trails in Mendocino County, and I'm also the environmental planner for the Sherwood Valley Band of Pomo Indians. Good to be here today. Just wanted to chat about how government-to-government consultation is distinct from public comment, as we know, and it's essential to ensure that tribal nations have a direct role in the decision-making process, especially as we are developing drafts and finalizing plans. And also just tribal communities are often amongst the most vulnerable to drought. And as we know, water is not just a resource, but is deeply connected to sovereignty, cultural survival, and environmental justice. However, to be clear, I am not here to provide consultation on these matters today. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask, how were tribes contacted to initiate government-to-government consultation for this process? And then what outreach methods were used, and how was it ensured that meaningful engagement occurred?
Thank you. Amber or Amir, do you have more information about how tribes were contacted?
Yes, I can respond to that. So we did make sure that every tribe in the county was notified of every single meeting that we had. We didn't engage in a specific government-to-government consultation process. That wasn't required under this SB 552, but we did make sure that we had updated contacts for every tribe, and that we included them on any notification of any updates or meetings that happened throughout the process.
A follow-up question, if I may. Also, curious if somehow there has been a missed opportunity between now and obviously the draft's finalization. How do we stay connected around that?
Well, you're welcome to reach out to me directly. We can talk after the meeting, and I can give you my contact information.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to come forward on agenda item 2A? Okay. Seeing no one come forward and no additional comments, the recommended action is to accept the presentation and provide any direction to staff. Supervisor Norvell?
Yes, I don't have any direction, but I approve the recommended action.
Okay, I will second that, and thank you for updating the website, and we look forward to seeing the report next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
We will move on to item 3A.
Through the chair, if I may. I
yes.
do need to take a vote on the motion.
So sorry about that. Yes, please do.
Chair Mulhern?
Yes.
Member Norvell?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you very much for keeping us on task. Item 3A, approval of the minutes for November 13th, 2024. Any comments, Supervisor Norvell?
No.
Go
ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I don't have any comments either. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on the meeting minutes from November 13th? Seeing no one come forward, I would accept a motion.
Move approval of the minutes from November 13th.
I'll second. If we could have roll call, please.
Member Norvell?
Yes.
Chair Mulhern?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 3B, public expression. At this time, members of the public are invited to provide comment on items of interest. And if you can come forward to the podium, if you could please state your name for the record, that's helpful. If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom platform or press *9 on your phone. I have nobody coming forward in the room, and I have no hands raised on Zoom. Are there any Announcements, item 3C. I don't think we have anything to announce. Great. Meeting adjourned.